everyone, I'm Natalie Alexander. Welcome to The Commons, here at the Library and Archives, Geneva, and to our playlist, The Journey to the Summit of the Future. The UN calls the Summit of the Future a once-in-a-generation opportunity to move towards a reinvigorated multilateral system that is better positioned to positively impact people's lives. And as we look to the recommendations and briefs informing the summit, one of the big questions is, how can we make multilateralism more inclusive? The question we're asking today is, what is the role of regional multilateralism? Can and should cities and local and government bodies have a bigger role to play in the global challenges that are impacting them on a daily basis? We're very happy to have with us here today the Undersecretary General, Tatiana Multi, who is the Executive Secretary of UNECE, the UN Economic Commission for Europe. USG Molcean, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Natalie, for inviting me here.
With pleasure. Let's begin a little bit about your journey, because you recently joined the UNECE as Executive Secretary. Could you share with us a bit about this journey? How did you come to work in multilateralism and international cooperation for more than 20 years now?
Well, it's true. I mean, 20 years, it flies so fast. But I've started from the beginning, I would say, in wanting to work for the public sector. You know, it's not that I don't like the private or the civil society, but it always appealed to me the fact that once you work for the public sector, you can influence, you can contribute to the processes, to the decision processes, to making policies. And this is how it started, let's say, at national level, and then involving myself with the international, with the multilateral system. And, you know, I'm coming from a small country, and I would say that the multilateral system, you really feel the impact and the influence and the contribution, and where your voice, or each country's voice, can be heard exactly in the multilateral system. So that was very appealing. And that is how I engaged with the multilateral community. And now joining the UN family, I have to say, it's different, but not as much. I mean, it's still the same goals. It's the well-being of the population, but on a different scale, I would say. And in this case, I'm working for the Regional Commission. I'm heading the Regional Commission for Europe, and bringing this goals, this objectives to the regional level is something that I'm trying to support UNECE in achieving. And for me, it's very appalling that it's a commission, you know, it's an UN entity, and we have, you know, not everyone understands sometimes what each of the UN entity does, but it's one that does very concrete and very practical work. And I always love to say that this is the UN entity that influences your daily life without you knowing and realizing. Maybe not so much in the spotlight, but you would feel, if UNECE is not there, that you would feel for sure.
Yeah. Let's go into that then. For those who don't know about the UN regional commissions, what is the mission of UNECE?
Well, we are one of the 5 regional commissions that has been established, you know, more than 75 years ago. The context was very specific. It was after the Second World War, and it was the main goal, you know, to help reconstruct, rebuild trust, rebuild and also promote economic integration. That is still our main goal, promoting and pan-European economic integration, because we are called Economic Commission for Europe, but it's a truly pan-European, because we have as our members, the 56 members, is also, we have US, Canada, we have the entire EU membership, Western Balkans, we have Eastern European countries, but also Central Asian countries are members of UNECE. And bringing European economic integration, what does it mean? I mean, what is economic integration? It sounds very, general and nice in theory. How does it happen in practice? What do we do as a commission? It's not only us, you know, staying and going to countries and say, well, you do have to work and cooperate better with another one. It's basically offering this platform. Unless countries do not come together and discuss, there is no economic integration. I'll give a very simple example to you, and one of the core things that we have also in our commission, for example, take transport. And one of the, let's imagine we don't have the road signs, we don't have the same system of signs, so everyone drives as they consider it appropriate. And by the way, the Road Signs Convention, it's a EC convention, I have to say. We have quite a few important legal instruments in the transport field, in the inland transport field. And this is exactly what we do. We bring countries together, we bring experts, first of all, governments, experts, civil society, academia, to work together to integrate economically. And economically, that means all areas, basically, transport, energy, environment, statistics, trade. So on all of these areas, we are helping the countries, the members, to really create a space where they can work, trade better. Like with the road signs, the same goes with trade. If we won't have the same standards, if we don't have the same rules, if we don't have the same understanding, then what you can do. So this is very simply, if I would say, what the main scope of the Economic Commission is to support economic integration by expertise, by offering this platform to the countries, the dialogue between countries, but also guiding them. Offering support, assistance, in particular to developing or programming country, as we call those countries that are still in the process of developing.
Yeah, you mentioned that the EC is part of our history. I wanted to go a little bit into that and how it's evolved over time. It was established in 1947, one of the first 2 regional commissions to be created. And as you mentioned at the time, its main goal was to support effective aid to countries after the war. It's now a permanent body of the UN. Much has changed, though, since 1947. How do you think EC has evolved to continue to be relevant in the region today?
The relevance stays actually in the core mandate that we do. And I have to say that this nowadays, I feel that unfortunately some of the initial objectives why the Commission was created and, to rebuild trust, to reconstruct in Europe, it's still there. We have more than ever crises, wars in the region. So it's somehow dramatic that what was one of the objectives more than 75 years ago, it's still there. So to build, to reconstruct, and that's the sad part. Relevance, so that is why it's still relevant, unfortunately, to have also this mandate to rebuild after disaster, to rebuild after conflicts, to rebuild after wars. So that is very relevant this days for us in the past years in particular, but this year as well. But otherwise, in the EC, you would see, from the regional commissions, we have a very, very strong, we are one of the commissions with a very strong regulatory or normative base. So we have more than 60 conventions in the transport field. We have a lot of conventions in the environmental field. So clean air, transboundary water, taking care of the resources of the naturals, that always stays relevant. So facilitating transport among people, regulating how you transport dangerous goods or how you deal with industrial accidents. That is something that stays relevant. But of course, one other aspect is that the challenges are evolving. And we see now more than ever a strong emphasis on climate adaptation. We have to build more resilient infrastructure. EC region, unfortunately, is one of the, unfortunately, that is the specificity of the region. It's one with the largest carbon footprint. We have countries with very heavy industries or hard-to-abate industry, as we call them. So that is one of our core mandates as well, to support those countries in mitigating, in adaptation processes. So you see, the challenges are changing, and this is why also the mandates are changing. And another aspect that I would like to underline is that, the scope is to bring more equal development, economic development, social development among the membership, among countries globally. But we still have quite high disparities in the region. We have countries that are well developed and those that are still in the transitional process. So it's still a journey to go.
Absolutely. And with regard to those gaps and the inequalities there, what do you see as critical for UNECE to be doing to kind of bring less disparity to the region?
It's all about bridging the gap, and it's also, I mean, we do have the resources as an entity, as an UN entity, but we cannot do this by ourselves. We do rely a lot on our partners. So in a way, those who are more developed and they are involving themselves extensively in supporting the development of the entire region. We have special programs, for example, one that has been around for 25 years. It's SPECA, it's a special program for Central Asian countries, for economic cooperation in the Central Asian countries. It's a program that we are working together with our colleagues from the other regional commission, from the Asia Pacific Regional Commission, because we have, I mean, members from Central Asia are our common, let's say, concern. And this is through programs to support their economic development, business community, but also in policy, in planning, in implementing sustainable solutions in their government programs. That is what we are doing now. So trying to really help with this disbalance. A very strong emphasis now is on interconnections, on transport connections. Transport, or roads, and Silk Road, one of the famous routes, has been existing for ages, for so longer than we might remember. But the idea is now it seems that it's more complicated to do trade via these roads than it was in the past, than our ancestors did it. So this is why we work with the countries to facilitate this. So we want that when people pass through these transport corridors, they don't see barriers. They don't have to pass through 5, 6, 7 different customs systems, through different trade regulations. So it's unified and also digitalized. So this is one of the new adaptations that we are talking a lot. How do we facilitate interconnection, transport, trade, by also digitalizing, of course, the use of new innovation, science, technologies? It's a key issue.
Do you think the multilateral architecture of the regional commissions, including UNECE, is still working today to be able to respond to these challenges you mentioned, like a changing climate, like digital technologies? Does something need to change?
We are actually evolving all the time. I mean, if you would see at the structure of the commissions throughout the years, and even in the last years, I mean, we have been adapting as well. Some of the key core of the mandate, as I was saying, is still there, and the relevance, because those who have drafted and who have prepared were wise enough to do it in such a way that it stays relevant. So without going into too many details, but putting really the basics into those core documents that we are working with. But nevertheless, I mean, we adapt every year, depending on the challenges. Now, for example, a huge focus for us is the climate. As I was saying, that was not part. It's still, it's very difficult to define climate. I mean, we are always struggling, including in EC, and I know that with other colleagues, who exactly is responsible? Is it the environmental team? I mean, our program is our transport team that should be doing climate. Is it the energy team? All of them. I mean, we are all responsible for that. But climate has become as horizontal, as a main aspect that we are integrating into our work. So, for example, in 2 weeks' time, yes, on 20th of February, we will bring together here in Geneva ministers of transport from the region and beyond the region, from 152 countries, to discuss inland transport. And one of the key documents that will be discussed is the strategy for mitigating the climate, the decarbonization of the transport system. So you see, we do adapt to the realities on the ground. This is why one of the key topics, for example, for the EC for the current years, we have the leading team for 2 years that is decided, and this is green transformation and digitalization. So it's digitalization is also a new reality. Technologies is new reality. So yes, I mean, you would see this being adapted, and we are not doing this isolated. I mean, it's not like EC is deciding on itself. Okay, let's think what would be the trend in or what is needed. The trend. This is part of the global effort. This follows the global agenda, the Agenda 2030, and now also the discussions and the efforts in shaping and defining what would be the priorities and the mandate and what we should look at in the coming years, like for the summit of the future. This is important for us really to see where each entity from the UN, from the multilateral system, what role to play, where exactly to be as efficient as possible in the overall efforts to bring this change.
Yeah. Let's then talk about the Summit of the Future. There are, as we mentioned, different briefs and recommendations being fed into the summit. There's the SG policy briefs, but also the High-Level Advisory Board report on effective multilateralism with its 6 shifts that it's recommending for more inclusive, effective multilateralism. One of the recommendations looks at a stronger role for cities and sub-regional regions in multilateralism. Before we kind of go into the details of what that means, what is your response to that? Do you see that cities should have a bigger role in multilateralism?
First of all, for the Summit of the Future, I think it's a very timely discussion, and also I have to say I'm a fan of the name. I think it's more clear and more understanding for the people. Summit of the Future, it's about our future. So what do we want to see our future? What do we leave for the generations to come? And definitely one of the key actors, I mean, in shaping this future are the local or regional authorities. And in UNECE we have already realized, I mean, we've been involving the local authorities quite extensively in our regional forums, for example, that we are doing each year. But we have realized that, you know, the local authorities, sometimes they need a separate avenue, a separate platform to do that. So already for the four years we've been organizing the Forum of Mayors. We'll be having, I mean, this year in October, end of September, beginning of October, the Forum of Mayors. Now, it's a platform for local authorities to share experience, first of all, but also for us to support their efforts in addressing all of the challenges and all of the tasks they have for this sustainable development agenda that we all have. They shouldn't be separated from the process, most of all because you would see and you would notice that local authorities, cities in particular, are the first one to be on the front, you know, they are on the front line when we have some challenges. And I'm not only talking about crises, be it some calamities, disasters, or when they have to deal with the energy issues, with the clean air to promote, but also good initiatives. I mean, they are on the front line. You know, it's at the government level, policies are designed, but it's in the end the local authorities that we are realizing this. So we are putting a strong emphasis on the role of the local authorities, on the not only the authorities as such. I mean, it's also the local communities, the regional actors, if I can put it like this, and it's also we are supporting them in regionalizing, localizing the SDGs. You should see the commitment from sometimes, you know, at the government at a more high level, not high level, I mean at a different central level, there is already, you know, more of a, you know, it's a part sometimes for some, it's part of the political engagement. But at the local level, I'm always amazed by the commitment and genuine contribution and engagement from all of the participants, and they say, okay, I want an SDG on that one, I want to do this and this, and it's amazing. I actually appreciate very much working with the local authorities, with the local communities.
Yeah, you mentioned the Forum of Mayors, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that because in the HLAB report, one of the practical recommendations is a special status for cities and regions. So not just having them kind of, like you said, on the sidelines, but having a formal and permanent status separate from civil society and NGOs, notably in the areas of environment, global health, migration, refugee response, transnational organized crime, and the SDGs. And how do we then make sure that this actually happens? Do you have any ideas?
I think, first of all, it's really offering this platform, and this is what we have done. So the Forum of Mayors that the EC or that was created, it's an UN platform, a formal UN platform, let's say, and it brings together. We have these instruments to bring together, and then we have the possibility. The agenda is very much driven by the authorities, but then we ensure that there is a synergy. We don't have, one thing we discuss at governmental, let's say, level, and then a totally different. So we need to make sure that there is a good understanding and a synergy and a linkage between what will be, for example, discussed at the regional forum that we are having in March, and then what we are discussing at the Forum of Mayors. And this is why also this year edition will be called Cities of the Future. It will be like a summit of the future for the local authorities, and it will be after the summit of the future or in parallel. So we will see how exactly the cities, local authorities are able and are transposing those great commitments into very practical, transposing into daily life, into practical life. We have focused discussions, I have to admit, we do work more with cities, yes. It's not all, less with villages, it's really with mayors of the cities. A lot of discussions are on housing, accessible housing, social housing. So of course some of the topics are more specific, but clean air, environment, it's one of the key issue. Also working, yes, indeed, with refugees. And one of the initiatives that was shaped at the last Forum of Mayors, I was very pleased to see that the women mayors have coordinated themselves better and made this initiative also to support each other, women mayors. And it's not only in the EC region. We have had at the forum also representatives from all of the 5 regional and the commissions coming together and discussing, because many of the challenges are similar. We have initiatives like the trees in cities or trees in dry cities. So we are supporting, our experts from EC are supporting cities and authorities really to make cities greener by, extending this program, because it's not enough only to wish to plant a tree. It's a whole process behind it. It's a lot of administrative sometimes, who's responsible for that plot of land where you want to plant. So this is what my colleagues are supporting authorities in different countries, different local authorities. And what was interesting for me, in particular when I was at COP28, that we had discussions about this, and there was well beyond EC region. We had large participation from country, including from the host country, from UAE, a very strong interest towards initiatives like this. So, this year we'll have COP29 in the region, and it's the first time in one of the programming country, as we call, so and I think Baku, speaking about the city that will host, also will have a very strong role. And I would like to use this opportunity really to bring more emphasis on the cities, on the region, challenges, but also opportunities for the region.
Yeah. The regional forum that you mentioned, it's happening in March, the UNECE Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. It was created in 2017 with the aim of creating a regional mechanism to be able to follow up and actually see if we're implementing the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. How can the forum this year best inform what's going to happen in the summit in September?
Well, the main scope, and this is actually one of the key elements, the SDGs, the Agenda 2030, the Summit of the Future and the Pact of the Future that will be developed. This is, in a way, a single process. It's complementary to each other. And of course, at the regional forum in March, we'll be discussing exactly this. And we will have dedicated session afternoon to see what is the practical contribution. They already, the 2 co-facilitator, Germany and Namibia, they already have facilitated a lot of work, a lot of discussions and contributions from member states on the vision. Now, for us at the regional forum, I think it's now to put some additional concrete measures and actions on this shape that we already have in place on this format. So the regional forum definitely will be focusing a lot on the helping member states to coordinate, to coagulate their voice, their position ahead of the Summit of the Future, to understand exactly what are their expectations towards the Summit of the Future, and that we make sure that it is translated in the final outcome, in the pact when we will have it. And for us, it's also an opportunity to make sure that all voices are heard. So, the summit, when it will take place, it's still, it's happening fast. It's a lot to be said, but the regional forum, it's one of the platforms that you have more opportunities to be discussing maybe more at length, more in details, and every single member to really contribute and have their voice heard in these preparations.
Yeah, I think it's been very interesting hearing from you the complexities of multilateralism. It's at several layers. There's things like admin and trying to help facilitate that. There's regulation, there's guidance. And that's been really interesting, and I think reflects that multilateralism isn't just debates, at the member state level. It's really trying to bring things forward collectively. USG Molcean, thank you so much for joining us today. Our final question to you is, what do you hope will be achieved at the Summit of the Future, and what would you like to leave with our audience?
For the Summit of the Future, I think there is one key message, and that's for all participants, be it member states, be it governments, be it local authorities, civil society, academia. It's not to forget what is the main scope and why we will be coming together for the Summit of the Future. And if we're genuine about this, I think we will have the outcome, and the main objective that we established for the Summit of the Future will be reached, to have an agenda, not to lose this momentum, this opportunity really to think about how we want to live this world for the generations to come.